Hi guys, welcome to this video. So in this video, we're going to be building a Google clone using Django. So a user is going to be able to search something and get some specific search results. If you're excited about this video, please don't forget to smash the like button and please subscribe. And if you like more tutorials like this, don't forget to check out my channel at Code with Tomi. Having that said, let's get straight into it. So guys, this is a demo of what we're going to be building. It looks exactly like Google. So we can search for something, let's say JavaScript, and then once we click on Google search, it's going to bring out some search results in a second. Yes, so once we scroll down now, we can see that we have some search results. How to learn JavaScript. I think we have like 10. So we're just building a basic search engine which a user can search for something and get some search results. As you can see, it looks just exactly like a search engine. So let's get straight into the video. Okay guys, so before we start with this tutorial, I must say that you need to have a prior knowledge of Python and Django. So if you don't know Python and Django, I have both courses on my channel at Code with Tomi. You can go check them out. But if you know Python and Django pretty well, then follow along in this tutorial. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure we have Django installed on our PC. So let's go to our command prompt. To install Django, we just need to type pip install Django. Now this command line will install Django on our computer. But since I have Django installed already, it's going to tell me something like requirements already satisfied. But for you, it should go ahead and install Django. As you can see, it says requirements already satisfied. Now that we have Django, let's just create our Django project. So we can say Django admin start project. Let's name it Google clone. Now what this is going to do is going to create a new Django project named Google clone in this directory. So now for us to be sure that we have this project created, we're going to press dir. As you can see, we have a folder created named Google clone. We can also go to that directory to confirm. Now in this directory we have our project. So let's hop into that directory. And what we want to do now is to create a Django app. So to do that, we'll say python manage.py start app, and let's name it search. Now this is going to create a Django app named search. Now when I press dir, I should see search. If I come back here also, I should see search. Now let's just run our Python project and make sure that it is installed, that it is working successfully. So say python manage.py run server. So what this is going to do is that it's going to run our Django project on the local host. That simply means that it's going to run it on our machine, only on our laptop. Now that we have this running, we can just come here and go to that URL. Now as you see, it says the install works successfully. Congratulations. This simply means that you have your Django project working. But we don't want to see this page, yeah? So this is our home page. The default home page is this Django design. What we want is to show a Google, since we're building a Google clone, we want it to show a Google search engine, and then when we search something, you should get some results. So for the front end, for the UI, I already designed a UI that looks like Google. This is it. So I just basically put Google logo and then a little search bar and all these Gmails, and just to make sure it looks like Google. Now what we want to do, we want to use this HTML page, this HTML page in our project as our home page. So once a user comes to this localhost, or when we host it, whatever our domain is, it should show this page. So the user is going to be able to search and then click on Google search. For us to do this, we're going to import this page into our project. But before we continue or go ahead with this, let's first open our Visual Studio Code and then open our project. So say file, open folder, and then let's come here. It's located in projects, Google clone. Yes, select. Now this is the folder we want to open. We're just gonna wait for it to open. Now as you can see, that has opened successfully. Just gonna quit this. Yeah. So what we want to do now, we want to basically specify our templates. Our template folder is going to contain all our HTML file. Let's say we have multiple pages on our site, on our web app. The template folder is going to contain the design, the HTML files for each page. So we're going to create a new folder in the root directory. If you don't know what root directory is, in Django, root directory is the folder which contains your manage.py file. Now any folder that contains this file, manage.py, is the root directory of that project. So now in the root directory of this project, we want to create a new folder called templates. Now as I explained, template is going to contain our HTML files. So now in this template, what we want to do, we're going to drag in this. Let's go back. Yeah, this is the HTML Google clone in which I said I designed. Now we're just going to bring it here and then paste it in template. So we're going to change that Google clone. We're going to change it to index. So this is good. Now we can just quit this. So if we just come here now and refresh our page, it's still going to show this. We haven't yet told Django that when a user goes to the home page, he should go to our template folder and get index.html. We still have to go through a process for that to work. Now for us to do this, we just need to go to our settings.py file in our project folder. So we'll come to Google clone, open it up. Under settings.py, the first thing we need to do is to import OS. So we'll say import OS. Now this is the first thing we need to do. After having OS imported, we're just going to scroll down all the way to templates, and then we're going to type os.path.join, open bracket, base there, then comma, leave a space, then templates. Now this line of code basically is just saying that once we request for an HTML page, you should go to the template folder in the root directory and then get the HTML page. As you can see, it's using the OS. That this OS means operating system. It's getting, if you're on a Mac, Linux, or Windows, or any one you're on, it's getting your operating system and then using the base directory. The base directory means the root directory of this your project. And as I explained earlier, the root directory is the folder which contains your manage.py file. Now in the base directory, you should go to template. Now inside this template file, Django now is expecting us to have views to all our HTML file. So that should be working. So now that Django knows where to locate our HTML file, what we just need to do is to do the URL mapping to specify our URLs. So for us to do this, we're going to open up search and then create a new file. I'm going to name this file urls.py. So first of all, we'll come to Google clone. In the urls.py of Google clone, now this urls.py file contains all the URLs on our website. So we're going to specify the home page in our app. So now when we come to our app, we'll say from Django.urls import path. Now this path is going to be used to specify each URL. What we just need to do now is to specify a URL pattern. URL patterns equals to. Now each URL is going to take a line of path, something like this, path, then just give it like a slash. Now let's leave it blank. When we leave it blank, it means our home URL. Then we'll say views.index, and then we're going to say name should be equals to index. Now we need to import our views. Say from here, import views. Now this is going to import our views. Now since we have our URL pattern defined, we have the URL defined, what we just need to do now is to go into our views.py file and then create a function. That function is going to get that HTML page, which is this index.html. So that means once a user looks for this URL, it's going to go to that function, get the page, and show it to the user. Now let's open up views.py. Say def index. Going to take a request, and then we say return render request, then index.html. Now what we need to do is to save these files. Now we have this file saved, but if we come here, it's still not going to work. It's still going to show this Django page. The reason is because our project doesn't know where the file is, only our app. So we need to come to our project, and then we need to import include. After include, we're going to specify a new path. In that path, we're going to say once the user goes to the home page, it should include search.urls. As easy as this. Now everything is done, the URL mapping is good. Now once we come back here and we refresh, we should see a good Google page. As you can see, now once they go to our website, our home page shows this good looking Google page. Now we're done with making the design. What we want to do now is to just go through the backend. Now we want a user to be able to search for a term, and then once the user search for a term and clicks on Google search, we want that user to be taken to another page, and then that page should contain all the search results. Now let's go back. For us to do this, we're going to be using a term called web scraping. Now if you don't know what web scraping is a field in Python which allows you to get a response from any from any page on the web. Now this basically means, like, if we send a request to something like let's say something like dev.to, if we send a request to like Ashnode, maybe a blog on Ashnode, and then once we get a response, we're going to get a response with all the data on that page in an HTML format. That means we're basically going to get all the source code to that page. You might not understand now, but when we dive into it deeper, you will understand. But I also recommend that you go through the web scraping course. It's actually a big field on its own. So having that said, let's continue with our project. So let me make sure this is recording. Okay, nice. So now, since we have everything working fine, what we just want to do is to use web scraping to get a search result. So when a user types in a search term, it's going to be sent to our backend, and then in our backend we're going to get the search results correlating to that search term using web scraping. Then all those results, we're going to return it back to the user. Now let's do that. For us to do this, we're going to come straight into, I don't think we might need this. We might come straight into our index.html file. We're going to scroll down here. So what we want to do, we want to make this a form. So the form should just contain only one input field, and then this Google search, we want to make it the submit button. So once the user types something and click on Google search, it will submit that query to us. Now once we come down here, this is where it is. So what we just need to do is to type form, and then we want to end it right here. And then this form, we want it to use a method. The method should be post, and action should be search. Now we can see that this is the input field, which is this this button, this input. So now I want to give it a name, and we want that name to be search. Yeah, then I want it to be search. The type should actually be text, and then this button, we want it to be a submit button. So now what we're doing, once the user, let's first refresh this page. So once the user search for something like Jeff Bezos, once the user clicks on Google search, we want it to be taken to a URL called /search. But for now, it's saying page not found. This is basically because we've not created another URL named search. So for us to do this, we need to come back here in our urls.py file. We're gonna create a whole new file. Gonna name it search views.search. Name should be search, and let's make sure we have our comma. Now in the views, we need to make a whole new function named search. So just need to do is this, and then we should type search and search.html. But as we all know, we don't have a search.html template here. So if we come here and refresh these, you will see that it says, okay, CSR, we're going to take care of this later. But if you just load our search, you see that it says template does not exist as /search. That means we don't have any template named search.html. So we're going to come to our template folder and create a new file named search.html. Now we want this folder to look like this. Let's go back to our page. It should basically look exactly like this page. The only difference we want our search file to look, the only difference we want is that under here we want to show the search results. That means once the user search something, goes to the search page, it should show a search results of whatever that user searched. So now what we just need to do, let's just copy this whole thing and paste it here. So there's gonna be a difference right here. So this is where we're gonna make some changes. Yes, let's just save that, and then let's cross check by just typing /search. You see, when we type /search, it brings us straight to this page. Good. But let's go back to the home. Good. So what I want to do now is using web scraping to get whatever user searched. So if we come to this index, you can see that we're sending this search into the URL called search. Now we have to go to this views.py file and get that search term in which a user searched. For us to do this, we're just going to say search should be equals to request dot method request dot post search. Now what this is doing is that once this page is queried, what it wants to get is whatever the user searched. But there's a mistake. Now a post request means you are posting something to that page. But what if a user just comes to this /search without posting anything? What we want to show is this. So we need to use an if statement. I'm going to do something like if request the method is equals to post, then that is when we want to do all these. So if the request the method is post, we want to do this. So we're just going to basically get the search. So now once we have what the user searched for, what we want to do is to use web scraping. Now let me explain web scraping better. For web scraping, we need three Python libraries. These libraries are requests, beautiful soup, and lxml. Now for you to install these, you can come into your command prompt and then type, okay, let's just come here, terminal, new terminal. We can just simply type pip install then those libraries. So let's wait for our terminal to load and then we're going to install them. So our terminal is loading. Okay, since we have this, we're going to say pip install requests bs4 lxml. Now this line of code is going to install those three libraries, but I already have these three libraries installed, so it's going to tell me something like requirements already satisfied, as you can see. But for you do not have that installed, so it should not tell you that. It should go ahead and install those three libraries. So first of all, let's opt out of these here. Okay, nice. Good. Now let's run our project here. Python manage.py on server. So since we have our project running there, I want to use this command prompt to explain web scraping better. So let's first up into our Python shell. Now what web scraping does is it gets a response from a page. Let's first go back to our project. In here, once we have whatever the user searched, what we're going to do is going to get that data. So where are we getting this data from? Now we can easily just go to Google and then get that data from Google. So this is basically how web scraping works. Let me go to google.com and search for something. Now when I search for free code camp here, you see now it has this generated link with this query free code camp. Now what we want to get is all these links, but there's a downside here. Web scraping is not illegal. It's actually a normal field in Python, in coding, in programming in general. But some websites don't like their sites being scraped. An example of that is Google. Google doesn't support their sites being scraped. So since they don't like that, we can just go into another search engine which is easier to scrape, and they allow scraping of their site, like ask.com. Before we go to ask.com, if you try to scrape Google, it might work, but most of the times it doesn't work. It's pretty hard to scrape Google because they did some fixing on their site which allows you not to scrape them. But I don't scrape Google since they don't allow it. So for us to get search results, I just go to ask.com. Now this ask.com is also a good way. We can simply search that free code camp again right here. It's also a good search engine. As you can see, we have the web results. This is the result we want to see. So for us to get these, what we want is that in this our app, once the user search free code camp, it's going to send these into our backend, and from our backend we are going to query this site, which is ask.com right here. And then once we query this site, we want this site to send us all these search results so we can send them to the user. We can display them to the user. Normally the old-fashioned way, the normal fashion way actually of making a search engine is to scrape the whole web. You have to, or let me say, crawl through the whole web to get all the data. But now the web, like almost 100,000 sites adding per day, that's pretty hard and don't have all the facilities. What we can just do, we can just go to an existing search engine and then scrape all the results. I think that's easier and better. So what we need to do now is to make sure we have our uniquely generated link. So we can cancel all these, and then these. Good. So once we come here, it still gives us this same page. Yes, that's what we want to see. It still gives us this same web result. So what we want to do is that once the user search something, we're going to query this URL, and the URL we're querying is this URL. So if a user search Bill Gates here, we want it to come to this URL and give it something like Bill Gates. So once we have the URL of that search results, we can just use web scraping to send a response and get all these results. You're going to understand that in a second. So let's go back to this free code camp page. So what I want to do is come back here. To do web scraping, first thing we need to do is to import our libraries. So we go up, import, request from BS4, import beautiful soup as BS, and that's what we need to do. So after importing our libraries, right here, since we have what the user searched, we just specify a URL, and that URL should be this ask.com URL. So that means come back here. So once the user search something, it's going to query this URL. But we don't want to query free code camp's URL every time a user search a different thing. Like if I leave this code the way it is, once the user search Bill Gates, it's going to give me the search result of free code camp. That's not what we want. What we want is that once a user search Bill Gates, or once a user search Africa or any other search term, it should query the URL of whatever the user search, and we can do that by concatenating with this variable. As you can see, this is now a dynamic URL, so it's anything the user search that is going to go into here. I hope that makes sense. Now that we have the URL we are looking for, what we just need to do is to get a response from that URL. To do this, we say res equals to requests dot get URL. That's it. Now what this res is doing, once it gets a request, it's going to provide us with the whole HTML page. Now let me explain that to you in the command line. So since we're in our Python shell, let me go back and just copy this. Let's just import these libraries. Now since we have this imported, let's use these. Okay, so let's say request dot get let me come here and pick this URL and paste it. Okay, now let's store that into a variable. Res equals to that. Now we see that we have gotten a request from that page, but we don't know if that's true. We can actually cross check. You see it shows us response 200. That means it got a page. If it didn't, it will show you an error. So let's print out what is inside that res variable. Once we do res.text, as you can see, I have this HTML page, some JavaScript and some CSS, but it's basically the source code to that site. As you can see, we have all the links on that site, all the search results, everything we need. So what we just want to do is to first of all pass it into an editable data. You can see that we have the source code. Since we have the source code, we can just easily get what we want, and what we want is all these. But before we do that, we have to use soup. Now that's what beautiful soup is for. This library right here is for parsing that data, that HTML data, into an editable one. If we don't use soup, we won't be able to edit that data. So we're just going to come back here. I'm going to say soup should be equals to bs res.text comma lxml. Now this soup is going to convert it into an editable and good looking data. Let's test it out in our command line. We come here and paste like this. Now once we type soup, you see now that our data is good looking. It's not jam-packed and it's not rough. As you can see, now it's editable. We can easily parse and get whatever we want, and we can easily fetch for some data. As you can see, all the results are here. You might not see them now, but in a moment you get what I'm saying. So let's just go back to our Visual Studio Code. Let me scroll this down. Okay, nice, good. So right here, since we have all our data in this soup variable, what we just need to do is to get the set results. For us to do this, we're going to store it in a variable. Let's name that variable result listings. It should be equals to soup dot find underscore all. Now let me just open that bracket. Let me explain what we want to do. So now this is going to find all these data by their unique identification. So what are we going to use to identify this data? Let's inspect this page to get the div tags and the classes they belong to. So as we can see, let me use this pick tool. As you can see, this whole block which contains the set results is inside a div tag which has a class named partial set results item. Let me close it like this. You can see that's where all the search results contain. They are contained in a div tag with a class named partial set results item. Now this partial set results item class and the div tag is their unique identification. That's what we're going to use to get those data. So we're going to come here and say soup.findAll. We want to find one which has a div tag, and that div tag which has a class named partial set result item. I hope that makes sense now. Now since we have that, what we just need to do now is first of all have an empty list. We're going to touch this list later. Let's first give it final result, an empty list. Now since we now have this empty list, what we just want to do is to loop through these result listings which we had. So we'll say for result in result listings, we're going to get the result title, the result URL, and the result description. And then once we get all those data we need, we're going to append it into this empty list. After appending it, then we send it to our HTML page. Now let's do that. First, to do this, we need to come here. As you can see, under each partial set result item, we have another div class which is named partial set results item title. Now this title is to show that it is the title of that search result. As you can see at the left corner, once I over on that code, it's highlighted that title. So let's go back and use this to get it. So we'll say result underscore title should be equals to result dot find. We're not using find all now, just find class underscore, which is equals to partial set result item title. But now we have to add dot text. If we don't add this dot text at the end, what is going to return to the user is this whole code block. But once we add dot text, it's going to look for the text in between it, which is freecodecamp.all learn to code at home. So it's only the text which is going to be returned to the user. So that dot text is highly important. Now since we have the result title, what we need is the result URL. So what we just need to do, we don't need to get anything here actually. We know that any div class, any class or any tag which has ref, that's href, is automatically a link, is an URL. So we know that anyone which has href under this result listing is the URL. So we'll just say result dot find a dot get ref. So what we're looking for, we're finding an a tag which has ref. That's easy. Now this one is similar, so I just paste this. So result description, let's scroll here, we change this title to description, DESC. Now what we just need to get is the class which is assigned to this description. So let's click on these two and then click on one description, and we see the class is partial search results item abstract. So we just copy that and we paste it right here. Now this is going to show us the description. Since we now have all the data we need, all the results, let's just append it to this list. So we're just simply going to say final result dot append. We're going to open two brackets, then result title, go there, result URL, also go there, result description, also in there. Now we have these three. Now we have all the search results we need inside this list. Since we have that, let's just pass it into the HTML page. But first, we have to pass it into a context. If you know Django very well, you should know that context is a dictionary used for parsing variables or values into the HTML page. So I'm going to define the context. It should be equal to dictionary. It's going to contain final results. Actually, they should have these. Final results. Now this is basically saying that this context contains the final result. Now what we want to do after this, we just want to pass it into the HTML. But before we pass it, as you can see right here, we have an if statement. Once we have an if statement, we need to have an else statement. So right here, we're saying if the request of method is post, do all this and then pass it into the HTML. Return render request search .html. Now we'll do something like comma context. This means we're passing their context dictionary into the HTML page. So now after passing it, we'll say else. Say else. Just do this. Just load the page. So as you can see, if the request or method is post, that means if there is a value being posted to this page, it's going to get all the search results and then return that page with the search results. But if it's just a normal visit to the page, no post method being used, just return the normal search.html. That's good. So what we want to do now, since we've passed everything to the search.html, let's save this. Now in the search.html, we can access the search results. So below the search form, I'm just going to do a little bit of styling, and then inside that styling, we're going to print out the results. To do this, we'll first use an if statement. So we'll say if final, if result, final result. What this if statement is doing is that it's getting if there is a variable named final result that is being passed into this search.html. So if that is present, then we want to get everything in that variable. So let's just give it a simple styling. We'll say b style, padding left, (50 pixels). Let's also give it a padding right, let's say 50 pixels also, and then color. I just use that to get the hashtag. So let me see. Okay, let's give something like 6464. Yes, that should be fine. So right here we can close the tab, we can close the tag, and then type web results. So everything should be there. So after that, we're going to loop through that final result. So we're going to say for result in final result. Let's first end the for loop. So we want to look through all the results, all the search results in this final result variable. So say div, let's give it a styling, padding left, let's say fixed 50 pixels, let's say padding right 50 pixels. Then let's close that. So in this div tag, we want it to just simply display all our title, URL, and then description. So in an h3 tag, let's give it h3. Let's do something like style, color. This should be just a mere blue. Yes. So let's just copy paste. So this one should be green, and then this one doesn't need a styling. So what this is doing, this is going to contain the title, this is going to contain the URL. Green is a good color for URL, and this is just going to contain the description, which should be mere normal color. So inside here it should be an a tag. So what we want that title to be linking back to that URL. So do something like AF. So that F should be this results.1, which is the second value, and that second value is the URL. No, result.1. Yeah, exactly. So now we're just gonna close this. Now that we have it closed, result.0, which is the title, the first value in the list. Result.0. Now this should be fine. Now when we come here, this should just contain result.1. Let's bring it here, straight up result.1, and then right here this should just contain result.2, which is the third value in the list, which is the description. So having this is very good. So if we come here now and then check, so let's come here and check. So once we search something like free code camp, and we click on Google search, okay, now it gives us an error. This error is basically because anytime you're using a post request, you should have CSRF token. What the CSRF token does is that it secures all the values which is being passed through that form. Now you know we have two methods of passing form, which is post and get. Now get is used for passing the normal data. Like in this search engine, we're meant to use the normal data, but I just want to use post so we can know how to use the post data in a Django project. Now, if we use post, the value which we are passing is not going to be shown in our URL. But if we use get, the value which we are passing is going to be shown in our URL. For example, if we come to this ask.com, the reason why we can see the value which is being searched for is because they are using a get request. If they aren't using a get request, what you're going to see is something like this, ask.com/web. They know the value that is being queried, but they didn't show it. So, but showing it, because there is no big deal in just showing the value here, that's why you can use a get request. But if we're using something like user authentication, let's say you're signing up or you're signing in, you don't want your password to be showing in the URL bar. Or let's say you're paying with your credit card. Yeah, that's a very good example. You don't want all your credit card details to be showing here in the URL bar. That's why we use post request for securing the data which is being passed. But if we are using just passing through a normal data, then we can just use a get request. So if you are using a get request, this error won't come up. You don't need to do this. But if you are using a post request, you need to add these to your code to fix that error. So we're just going to scroll up all the way to the beginning of the form. This is it. So immediately after the form, we're going to put something like CSRF underscore token. Now this will solve that issue. Let's go back now and search for the same thing. Free code count. Now when we click on Google search, okay, it still says the same thing. That's because I edited it in the search.html, but we're accessing the normal home page. So let's go to the home page. Also, this is also meant to be here, but let's go to the home page, the index, and put it right here. Now that should be fixed. Let's do that. We don't need to have any errors now again. So when you click on Google search, we should see a search results of that search term. So let's wait and get the results. So within a second that should open. Now that is very good. As you can see, when we scroll down here, we see something like web results. Then we see the name, which is linking to this URL, and we see the URL, and then we can see the description. But there is a little bit of mistake in the styling, where we should allow there to be spacing between each search result, so it will be noticeable. So to do that, we can just come back here, and then after this div tag, right under here, after this div tag, we can do br, and let's give it under br. Now this is going to put spaces between the two. So let's just submit that form again, and right now we should see spacing as a normal search result. So let's just wait for that to load. I don't know why that is taking time, but it should load in a second. Let's see. Okay, still waiting. Okay, now this is taking a weird time. Okay, now it has loaded. As you guys can see now, it's good looking. Each search result block has its own spacing. Now that's good. Now you can see the search result. Once we click on this, takes us to free code camp, takes us to the news, takes us to their YouTube channel, takes us to their Twitter page. Now it basically just gets results. See Wikipedia, GitHub, Medium, everything you need to know about free code camp, it gets it here. So these is how you can just build a basic search engine using Python and Django. So guys, now that we have our project finished, what we just need to do is to host our project on the web. Now to do this, we are going to use Heroku as our hosting platform. So let's just open a new terminal right here. So what I want to do, we are going to access Heroku. For you to be able to use Heroku, you need to have an Heroku account. So you can just go to heroku.com and sign up for an account. So let's just get straight into the hosting. The first thing we need to do is to make sure that we have some libraries installed. To host on Heroku, we need some specific Python libraries. And to install these libraries, we'll type pip install Gunicon, and the second library is Django Heroku. Now without these two libraries, you can't host your Django project on Heroku. So I have it already installed, so it should tell me something like requirement already satisfied. But for you, you should go ahead and then install these libraries. As you can see, it also has some packages that comes with those libraries. So it told me requirements already satisfied. Now after doing that, what we just need to do is to come into our root directory. right here, what we need to do is to create a new file and call it runtime.txt, like that. Now inside this runtime.txt file, we need to input the Python version in which we used for this project. And for us to get this, the Python version, we're going to come to our terminal and type Python, I think something like this, v. Okay, then it should be Python version. Okay, yeah, it shows us our version 3.7.4. so in here we're just going to type Python, then we're going to put an hyphen, we're going to say 3.7.4. so this is what we need. After having this, we can quit this file, we can close it. Now what we need to do is to create another file and name it proc file. So we're going to come back to the root directory, and I'm going to, okay, it's creating it in template, so we need to cancel that. Let's just close it. So in our root directory, as I said earlier in this tutorial, the root directory of a Django project is the folder which contains the manage.py file. So right here now, we want to create a new file and call it proc file. Now this is just named proc file, it doesn't have any extension. As you can see, Visual Studio Code already identifies the file. Now this proc file, we're going to write something like web column, then we're going to write Gunicon project. Now in this project, we're going to write, instead of writing project here, it's supposed to be the name of your project, but since our project is called Google Clone, we'll write Google Clone. So where this Google Clone is, if you are hosting any other project, it should be the name of that project. We'll say .wsgi, then we'll put a column, we'll say application, then we're going to put 2 hyphens like this, then we'll say log, then hyphen file, then 1. Now this is what this file needs to contain. Now we're just going to save it and close. After doing this, what we just need to do is to get all the packages in which we used in this our project. Now in this project, as you know, we installed some things that we use for web scraping. We installed Beautiful Soup, we installed requests, and right here we also installed Django Heroku and some other packages, some other libraries. We need to put all these libraries into a file called requirements.txt. So when we are hosting, our hosting platform knows all the libraries used in this project. Now for us to do this, we'll come back to our terminal and we're going to type pip freeze greater than requirement.txt. Okay, right here, requirement, yes, like that. So now we should create a new file here named requirement.txt. If we open this file, you see it contains all the packages, all the libraries in which we used, alongside with their version number. So when we want to host, it's going to install all these packages on the web server. So let's continue. Now we're done with installing and setting up. What we need to do now is to go to our settings.py file and add some configurations. So right at the top, we need to import 2 libraries. We're going to type import Django Heroku, Django_Heroku, and under here we're going to import DJ_database_URL. After doing this, what we need to do is to go to the bottom of our file and then type something like Django Heroku. Then we're going to say .settings, then open bracket locals, then open close bracket. So this is what we need to type at the bottom of our file. Then after doing this, we need to go up and then look for a variable called allowed hosts. It's actually a list right here. Now this allowed host means which host can run your project. So we can put some specific domain name, like if our domain name is googleclone.com, we can type it in and say googleclone.com. That means we only want googleclone.com to be able to open this project. So if we don't type googleclone.com and we host our project on another domain, it won't open. But to allow any domain or any host to be able to open our application, we are going to do something like this. I'll put asterisk right here. So this simply means that any host can open our application, any domain name, all hosts are allowed to open our application. So if you only want some specific domain name to open your application, you can just remove this asterisk and then put the domain name in there. So it's a list. You can also do something like this, and then let's say googleclone.com, something like that. But us, we want all hosts or all domain names to be able to open our application, so we leave it as universal. So now we can save this file. Now that we've done this, we're coming back to our terminal and we're going to log into Heroku. To do this, we'll say Heroku login. I'm just gonna wait. So this is going to prompt us to open our browser, and it's going to automatically log in from our browser and on our terminal also. So it says press any key to open up the browser to log in or Q to exit. So if you press any key except from Q, it's going to open up our default browser. But if you press Q, it's going to just stop this command. So let's just press I press H. So that's going to open up our browser right now alongside with the Heroku authentication page. So we're just going to wait for that. Should open here. That's it. So it's going to create a new tab automatically and then go to Heroku. Yeah, that's it. So we're just going to wait for it to load. It's going to bring up like a button and say login. So for this to work, you must have logged in Heroku on this your browser before hosting. So what I just need to do now is to click on login. Once I click on login, it's going to automatically log in my terminal. So let's wait and see. Okay. Yeah, it says logged in. You can close this page and return to your CLI. It should now be logged in. So let's just close this page. Now when we go back to Visual Studio Code, if we look in the terminal, it says logging in done. So it logs in as my email. Now that's good. Now since we already logged into our own account, we can just create a new site under Heroku. So to do that, we'll say Heroku create. Then we're going to say let's name it Google Clone. Now let's wait for that to create. Now if Google Clone name is already taken by someone else, it's going to prompt us to use another name. But let's see. Okay, now as you guys can see, it says name Google Clone is already taken. So let's look for a unique name. Let's do something like let's say Google search YouTube. Let's say Google search YT. So Google search YouTube. Let me just press enter. Okay, so it's creating Google search YT. As you guys can see, it says done. Now it has created this website, our web app on this URL. So now if we go to this URL, it's just going to say something like application created successfully. So what we want to do is to deploy this our Django project which we built on this URL. So first of all, let's open this URL and see what it gives us. Yes, we want to open the link. Yeah, so it says Heroku, welcome to your new app. Refer to documentation if you need help deploying. but we don't need help deploying. We know how to deploy. So what we just want to do, we are going to go deploy now, and then once we're done deploying, this is not going to show again. What is going to show is our Django project. So let's go. So now what we just need to do, we're going to use git. So we just need to say git status. Okay, so now we need to initialize our project, so say git init. Okay, nice. Initialize empty git repository. So we're going to say git status again. Now you can see that we have an initialized git. So we're going to say git remote -v. Okay, now what we want to do is to say git remote add Heroku. Now what we want to add is, we're going to scroll up, and then as you can see, when it created our app, it created the URL, and it also created the git the git link in which our app is going to be deployed to. Now I'm just going to paste this. So what this is doing is git remote add Heroku. So it's adding our project to this git URL. So let's just cross check that, git remote add Heroku, the URL, and we press enter. Okay, that's good. So we'll say git remote -v, git remote -v. Okay, nice. So what we want to do now is to type git status. Good. So after doing these, we just need to git add. So what this is doing is adding our project to that git repository, whatever it's called. So now we've added it. Let's commit. So say git commit -m. Then we need this. So let's do something like the first time. Then we can press enter. Okay, say unable to detect email address. Okay, let's go up and see. Auto identity unknown. Run. So we need to run these. Git config user.email. Okay, so let's run these. So let me see. Now we're going to say my email is okay, and then name. Let's do the same. Okay, nice. So let's now try to do that again. Okay, very good. Now we can see that has committed. Now what we just need to do is to push it into Heroku. So we'll say git push Heroku master. Now let's just sit back and wait. Now this it usually takes approximately 2 to 3 minutes to do. Yes, because it's going to push all. It depends on how large your project is and the amount of libraries you used. So remember I said this requirement.txt file is very important. See, it's installing all the libraries we used in this project. As you can see, it's installing them. If I delete this file, it's going to bring up an error, or if this file is not existing, because then it doesn't know the Python libraries in which we used. So as you can see, it has successfully downloaded that and it's just installing all the packages automatically. Okay, good, nice. So everything is doing. Then after that, it's just going to push all our project files, and then that we should be good to go. So it says yeah, deploy to Heroku. So I think we're almost done. I just give it some seconds. Okay, verifying the play. Boom, that's good. So now this means we have our install hosting done successfully. Now let's go back to the URL and then refresh. So now, okay, it says application error. An error occurred in your application. We can check like this. Let's go back. Right here, we paste this and let's see. So we're gonna wait for it to tell us our error. Okay, so what's the error right here? Okay, good. It says the error is from I think from our proc file. Yeah, I was not sure, but I think I knew this would happen, because in our proc file right here, I don't think should be a space here. So we're going to cross check. So first of all, let's go to Google and let's just search something like we can search proc file sample. So I don't think there should be a space before that hyphen. So I think that's where the error is. I know that's where the error is coming from. So let's see. I use Google a lot. So let's open. Okay, let me just paste something like this. I think this is better. Yes. Okay. Or you know what? The best way to do this, let me go to my Roku dashboard. Then I can show you how to see the proc file of an app in which you've deployed before. So let me just look for one. Full student tools. So I'm just gonna click on that and you're gonna see the proc file. So we're gonna use this to know our own proc file. So let's see. As you guys can see, this is the proc file. Okay, nice. So I'm gonna just copy it right here and then paste. Okay, so let's first, the only thing we need to change is just this. We need to change it to Google clone. Okay, so let's see it. Just give it a space. I think that should be nice. Yes. So now let's save this and do that again. So let's just opt out of that. Yes, we want to crash that. Okay, so what we just need to do is to initialize our git again. So we just start from git init. So we reinitialized it and then git status. Okay, nice. So yes, that's what we want to change. Modified proc file. So that's what we want to change, and then we just need to test git remote -v. Then we're going to press enter. Okay, nice. And then we're going to say git remote add Heroku. Now we're going to scroll all the way up to this. Let's keep, okay, to around here. Yes, so this is what we're looking for, the git URL. So we're gonna scroll down by and then paste it, press enter. Okay, remote Heroku already exists, so that's nice. So we'll just say git remote v. Okay, so git status. Okay, good. So now what we just need to do is to commit again. So we'll say git add git commit m we can still say the first time. This place here is anything you want to say, but I just like saying this. Okay, so it says one file change. That's very good. So let's just push it back. Git push Heroku master. Now let's wait again. Okay, so this is doing well. Okay, yeah, I think it's going to reinstall all those Python libraries in which we used. So we wait and wait. Okay, nice. Okay, now let's wait for this to do. Okay, deployed to Heroku. So now let's just wait for verification to tell us successfully deployed. Okay, let's give it a couple of seconds. Yeah, okay, done. So now let's go back and check. We hope this works this time. It should work actually. Let's press enter and then boom. As you guys can see, our app is successfully running on the web. So now if you go to Google search yt.herokuapp.com, you should see this Google clone. Now let's just search something. Now let's search let me search my channel. Let's search code with Tomi and then click on Google search, and then it should just bring out a search results as it did when we were test running the app, when we were building the app. So let's wait and see. Good. So now we scroll down and you see it bring out some search results. It bring out my channel, my channel again. It bring out my Udemy profile, which I don't know why it's linking to my Udemy profile, but that's Google for you. It brings out different things, different places I've talked. That's good. Now let's search for let's say like free code camp again. Good, pretty fast. Now let me scroll down. You see it gives us some search results. As you can see, our project is up and running fine, so that's good. So now you can go to this URL and then you see the project in which we built. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you did, because I had a lot of fun building it. If you did, please don't forget to smash the like button and please subscribe. I really appreciate that, and turn on the bell notification button so you get notified when I drop new videos like this. Having that said, thank you for watching and bye for now.